Check, check.
Oh, you sound beautiful. How you doing, brother?
Cool. Doing good. How you doing?
I'm doing all right. Another day in heaven. So you said you wanted to record it on your end, edit it, me not do anything, and then you could put it on up on your end and you'll send it to me, right?
Yeah, I can send you a version, or if you have a downloader, you can just download it off my YouTube channel. Either way.
All right, cool. That works. All right, so we can just get right into it. Skip all the pleasantries. I got a bunch of questions. I'm going to ask you a bunch of questions you probably can't answer. To be honest with you, these are the things I'm into. Not so much about flat Earth. I'm sort of convinced, to be honest. Just the math, kind of. You know. Anyway, it doesn't matter. To me, it more matters why we're here. What are we doing here? What is the point of this? If it's a ball, if it's a flat earth, if it's a torus field floating in the mind of a psychotic god, either way. So I'm going to put up my theory first. So I believe we're in a simulation. This doesn't even feel like the original reality I was in. I believe that not everybody's affected by the Mandela effect. Mandela effect points to simulation. I believe that the repetitive Groundhog's Day nature of reality, staying in a perpetual war state when it's not even of our nature, points towards simulation. The actually almost everything when you start to think about it from that perspective, and to take it even a step further, I almost think that we're maybe even a video game to extra dimensional beings. I don't want to get too crazy the first time we talk, but so the questions I have are going to be more about stuff like that. And I'm going to start off with a very easy question to answer, Eric. I'm curious, do you believe in free will?
Mm, not well, believe that's one word I'm not big on anyway. I try
Interesting.
I try not to believe in things that I don't know. I try to either know or not know, and
Mhm.
I'm cool with being in that space. Whereas a lot of people they'd rather believe or not believe in things. Um, so there's that. First of all, I try not to believe in
Yeah, me
anything.
too.
Um, so there's that. Sorry, what was the original question?
Do you do you know if we have free will or not?
There we go. Um, I don't know either way, nor do I believe either way. So that one's still in the don't know, um, box in my brain. But
Mm,
I lead closer towards the that we don't have free will, or at least we don't have the level of free will that most people seem to think we do.
mm,
Um, I have a video I put out called "Free Will is Mostly an Illusion."
mm,
Um, so I have some room for perhaps we're not 100% determined. There's a new book by Sapolsky, I think his name is, called Determined, and the whole book is about how 100% we're determined. There's no free will whatsoever,
mm.
and he puts forth a pretty good case for that. So I would recommend if people think, it's a religious argument often that you hear a lot from Christians that, when you describe this reality in any sort of negative way, they're like, oh no, any negative thing that happens here is just because God gave us free will. And
Mm.
this entity called free will is the reason why everything has gotten so bad and evil and everything. It's not because it was created that way. It's because we were given this thing called free will, and then we abused that free will and made everything terrible. But it's used somehow to defend things that I find indefensible. So they'll say like, why are there parasites? Why is there natural disasters? Why are there psychopaths? Why is there a food chain where everything has to eat the life out of everything else to survive? There's a lot of like dark realities here. And when you ask most religious people who just, praise Allah, praise Jehovah, and they think that God is the most benevolent, holy, perfect being, and that this world is, heaven on earth, and that we're just supposed to appreciate every little thing. And so they find a way to appreciate all the negativity by saying, oh, well, it was God gave us free will. And the original humans, the Christians will say, ruined that by eating, an apple, eating some fruit off of a tree that they were told not to. And then forever thereafter, we have this original sin. And so we don't have as much free will as the original humans did.
Mm.
But even the amount of free will that we think we have, like, putting on your clothes this morning, how much of a free will action really is that? I mean, first of all, it's determined by what's actually in your closet, what's in the climate, the area that you're in, what's been made. Um, you could say not wear clothes, but then you go out and you'll get a public indecency, and then you'll end up spending the night in jail probably because of your free will to not put on any clothes. So I mean, when you look at something as simple as getting changed, how much free will is there actually?
Mhm.
And then you put in everyone else's competing free wills, supposedly this person saying this, doing that, and then impeding on your freedom in various ways. And then inherent non-freedoms that we have, like having to breathe, that we can't breathe underwater, we can't flap our arms and fly anywhere. I can't free will myself to do certain things. And then there's consequences predetermined into all these things. So if I want to exercise my free will to eat some nails and glass, I can do that, but not without severe consequences. So, where's the freedom in this supposed free will that we have that these religious people cling to? And that it's the constant answer I get anytime I tell a religious person anything bad about this reality, and I question the creator about it. It's like, well, why was it created this way? Because it doesn't have to be. Could have been created this way. I offer, alternate solutions, and they just kind of smirk and laugh at me like my questions are so childish,
Mhm.
and they're above me with their cult-like air about them.
Beliefs.
Yeah, just their beliefs. Again, there it is. They don't know these things, and I don't know that we're in a hell realm designed by an evil creator. I don't make those kind of claims, but I do have those kind of questions. And
Mhm.
most religious people, they don't have these questions anymore. They found answers in this or that book, and that's 100% what they're going with. And that's back to the belief and non-belief thing. I don't like having to believe in something that is not, factually demonstrable to me, empirically solid, physical, some way that, repeatable, scientific, basically. And if it's,
Observable.
yeah, and if it's beyond that, fine, then it's just in a different space in my brain where I just say, I don't know. And I'm like a detective. I try to work towards gathering clues and evidence. And, most things I don't think you're going to get to 100%, especially talking about metaphysical type things like we're talking now. I don't think, at least while we're in these physical bodies, that we're going to get metaphysical answers. So it's like a game more than anything. And that brings you back to the simulated reality. The most amount of truth that we can even get here seems to be, you couldn't even verify it if you knew it. Like if you got the 100% truth, if you're whatever your big theory of everything is, how do you confirm or deny it? You know?
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. You've actually grazed over probably three or four of the questions I wanted to ask you now. So I would agree with you. I think that free will is like a percentage. We have like 5% free will. We have the same amount of free will that a prisoner in prison has. I could choose a Twinkie or a donut at the commissary table. But other than that, I'm driven by, like you said, emotions, desires, restricted by pain. Like I could choose to chew glass, but it's going to really suck for me at the end of the day. So yeah, you're right. Everything's sort of restricted. I agree. I believe that our scripted nature also points towards simulated reality. I wanted to ask you also, because to me, from my perspective, people like you are very, very, very rare in this realm. People like you actually don't get enough credit for what you've done in this reality. I believe that exposing the lies of Earth to humanity is a very, very big deal in waking up consciousness. And again, I'm not in any box. I don't like being boxes because they create division, they create conflict. I don't know if it's a flat or a ball Earth, but what you did do is you made people go, well, God damn, man, a lot of the stuff this guy's saying is making sense to me. And it makes them question. And when it comes to waking up consciousness, again, maybe not to any box, maybe not to Archon reality or hell realm, but at least you just go, wow, this is making a lot of sense. You're one of the main people in reality, in my opinion, to do that to people. So I commend you for that. I think you're a very special person in this realm. But that also makes me question because I am not on that level, I guess you could say. And I've had issues with, I don't know if you could call it energy attacks, entity attacks, just issues with conflict, issues with drama, things that appear in reality to seem to cause conflict in my life. And I say, man, if I'm dealing with this shit, what the hell is like somebody like Eric Dubay going through? And I wonder that about you. Eric. Like, do you deal with this this hell realm's attempts to manipulate, control, mess your life up, make your life more difficult?
Mm. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I try not to look at it like it's some masterminded evil plan against me and my life. Like you could look at it that way. I see a lot of
Truman
people,
Show.
yeah, like it's the bad things come in threes, and look at what happened to me here and there, and it seems as though life is trying to out to get me type of thing. It's possible that life literally is doing that, like the idea of a loosh farm earth that what's his name, Robert Monroe. He had
Yeah.
the out of body experience that he saw a creation story that involved a kind of evil, inferior creator creating his own copy of reality. Again, that's that simulation idea where there is a greater, more perfect, more good reality out there somewhere. But then this one is a imperfect copy of it, created by an inferior demigod or something. And the idea of the loosh farm was that he was creating an energy harvesting place, and they harvest our negative and potentially positive energy, I guess. Um, but the idea being that through our traumas and the different emotions, and especially at death, that God or the gods are able to like suck up this loosh energy from the plants, animals, and humans that are here, and that's what we're doing here. And it's like that's his big answer to the why of existence, and it's quite a dark but interesting one because it answers some of these questions, like I was saying about why is there this food chain that everything has to eat the life out of everything else just to survive in the system. I mean, if I was God, I could create a system that doesn't have all this unnecessary killing of billions and billions of lions eating gazelles, and everything that feeds upon itself. You could have a way of sustaining itself without taking the life out of something else. You don't even necessarily need to have beings that need to have ingestion and excretion the way we do. That's why that's gross, farting and pooping and everything. Like, why include that into your system? There's a whole bunch of little things that everyone just accepts as necessary. But if you were God, and this is the universe is your playground and your Play-Doh, and you can mold anything you want. Eventually, whatever you come up with, well, that's your responsibility. You don't just get to say like, oh no, well, he gave us free will, and that's why parasites exist, and your little babies have to die of random cancers and stuff like that. It's your fault. You got the cancer because you had alcohol while you were pregnant, or blah 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 blah. Yes, but who made it so that alcohol and pregnancy and fetal syndromes, that whole thing, the whole cycle, had to have been created by God, right? When you take it back far enough, the ultimate entity responsible for all evil in the world has to be the creator, right? But when you ask any religious person this question, they've got all these creative caveats and excuses,
Excuses.
right? To not address that elephant in the universe.
Mhm. Yeah, I think so. I think that so could a character, a sentient character in a video game say that the of Grand Theft Auto will say that the owners of rock stars are gods? I don't know. So I think that I don't know if there is a god of this reality. If there is, he's absolutely sadistic and evil for no reason. There's no reason for this much unnecessary suffering, all the suffering we go through. I agree. Lucia is almost just a great scapegoat to explain it because it's so nonsensical. The only other way to make sense of it is to say that God is either evil, sadistic, or in a bizarre, like fetal state, and he doesn't understand what he's creating or something. But I
Mm-hmm.
just don't think. I think it's a simulation. I think it's even. maybe even a video game to other things. And I mean, a lot of the things that people talk about in this reality, extra dimensional entities, aliens, demons, these may be what archons, these may be the characters that play humanity. And I say that because well, again, there's so much about possession. People, well, I call it the mind virus. I call it the subconscious, the thought projection machine, the brain that spews thoughts into our mind without us saying anything. I think I call it the mind virus. Now, there's a debate whether this is technology, spiritual, or both. I don't know what it is. I know that we deal with intrusive thoughts. All you have to do is try to meditate for about 20 minutes, and you'll understand that really clear. So I think that that's all a part of it. But the point that I was trying to make is that I don't know if there's a God. If there is, he's sadistic. I think it's just a simulation. I think it's a video game or something else. And loosh is a, well, when I play a video game, I'm a gamer. I grew up gaming. I don't call it loosh. I call it entertainment. It just feels good to me when I'm playing, when I jump on the rabbit's head and bloop, bloop, and I level up. It feels good to me. You could call that loosh. There's a sort of exchange, but it's really just entertainment. And I think that that's what's going on here. And again, that's a very dark truth. Most people don't, I don't like the idea of being a simulation, period, let alone
Mm.
being a simulation for something else to enjoy off of my suffering. But it makes a lot more sense to me than, well, God loved me and he created me to devour other entities so I can survive, so that I could die at the end of the day and not just die myself, but watch everybody I love die
Mm.
as well.
Right.
Yeah, I'm caught between that. It's either this reality is a simulation or it's a sadistic, demonic God. I wanted to ask you, have you heard of the laser experiment, the seeing code with the spirit molecule while being on the spirit molecule? You could actually see code in the surfaces of things. Have you heard of this?
Meaning people on DMT that are seeing kind of like matrix code in physical reality.
Yeah, so the experiment's basically to smoke DMT and then you shine a diffracted laser on a wall. And then if you look in the laser, you can actually see code running behind the surface of all things. And this works on not just the surfaces of things, even on your skin. And well, supposedly it's been replicated now over hundreds of times, this experiment. Uh, so again, that would point towards simulation theory. Actually, if you don't understand, then asking the question is almost redundant. So let me switch it up. Actually, are you affected by the Mandela effect?
No,
None. You don't have any Mandela effects.
no.
Oh my goodness, you're from this reality? Oh my God, I'm sorry to hear that. That is super unfortunate. Man, I gotta tell you, the reality I came from before this one was not as hellish as this one, but man, you must be like a toughened soul being from this hellish place. But anyway, okay, so that's a redundant question. So I'm curious, do you think this is probably the most important question I have for you? Well, probably the next one. But do you think that what you do is actually making a difference here?
Um, I mean, yes and no. I've had this conversation before. I usually end up with a yes and no type answer. So the yes is that, I mean, tens of millions of people, maybe we're into hundreds of millions now, I think, have woken up to the reality of flat Earth in just the past 10 years.
Mhm.
And I mean, to me, that's a huge accomplishment from when I was just sitting on my bed reading a bunch of old 1800s flat Earth books, thinking, is it, is Earth flat? Is this even real? To, to writing my own book and then releasing it and doing 10 plus years of activism to try and get the word out, to now being able to just kind of sit back and look at the progress of, what has happened from there being almost no information whatsoever on the internet about it, and nobody ever hearing about anyone seriously talking about flat Earth in this day and age, to now it being one of the top Google search terms, and everybody knows somebody that's a flat earther. I mean, that's an accomplishment. I can feel like it's a big yes in that way, right?
Mhm.
But then, bigger than that, what has ultimately changed as far as the course of humanity right now, and the kind of track we're on with the New World Order, the elites, the rich psychopaths, the governments, the banking system, all these other conspiracies that exist that people know nothing about, the religions that people believe and will fight to the death for rather than question like we're doing here. if people were honest with themselves, I think every single person on earth would be agnostic. Because, as I said, until you die, and maybe even not then, could you ever know any theory of everything to be true or not? When we're locked in these physical meat suits in this physical reality, how do we know if there's anything beyond it, beyond us in these bodies, in this physical reality itself? Everything is just a theory, whether we think there is or there isn't. Um, so I think everybody is agnostic and they just don't know it. Similar to the way that everybody is a flat earther, but they haven't figured that out yet. Um, so when I see a glober or I see a Muslim or a Christian, uh, beyond it, I see a flat earther who has no idea, about metaphysics, but
Yeah.
they're pretending that they're on a globe and they're a Christian or whatever it might be.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. Honestly, they are indoctrinated. It's sort of an unfair. You could almost say that the elite or the evil bad guys at the top, they have an unfair advantage, man. Putting us into them indoctrination schools, especially when we're young too, and like the first thing you see is the globe. And obviously, it's the every kid has that memory. I've never talked to somebody about flat or globe where they don't have that memory where they said, "Hey, teacher, what's that?" And they say, "Oh, that's you. You're on a ball." And it's so bizarre to us when we're a kid. But to us kids or to us as kids, adults are like gods to us. Like, well, if they say it, it must be true, right? So we get indoctrinated at such a young age, and that's really sad. If you look at it from a psychological perspective, that's really where the brain gets molded, man. And
Absolutely.
yeah, and
Uh,
that's why I always promote don't watch your kids fairy tale movies. You really create these humans that are grown men in their 40s and 50s that like to pretend fake things are real. And it's just like, so I think a lot of religion comes from that, the indoctrination system, the way we're brought up, what's culturally cool for us to do. And actually it's culturally helping brainwash our kids. We do what they tell us and it actually helps them. It's so bizarre.
mm,
I mean, it's just this reality is unbelievable. And they have a very unfair advantage. So, well, actually, I had another question, but now I have a totally different question. Do you think what would you propose as is a practical step forward for humanity to evolve past this state we're in now, this
mm.
unbelievable, godforsaken, low-level state we're in? Do you think that there's actually anything practical that we could do to make a difference in reality, or do you think it's sort of just scripted to suffer us endlessly?
Um, that could be a yes and no as well, because in some ways, I do think it seems like we were talking about this the way the food chain and parasites and natural disasters. It does seem that there is a cycle of nastiness that's gonna befall you regardless of how much humanity tries to elevate itself. Um, but I mean, yogic cycles and whatnot, the idea that there are, waves of evolution or devolution, you could say, in the human condition, that makes sense. I can see how we could have a slightly better or slightly worse experience here based on our own volition. Um, so I've done like a podcast called Solutions to the System, where I offer everything. I wrote down a bunch of notes and then I just did a solo podcast where I basically did this. I tried to think of every single practical solution I could think of that people could enact in their own lives
Mm.
to try and better things. And I approached it from different angles, like economic things, health things, political, like activism type things that you can do. So I mean, it's such a big question that there's multiple answers. I mean, there's so many things that we can do to slightly improve life here. Like I'm saying, that's why the big answer to me is kind of like a yes and no. I do think that when all is said and done, if I'm on my deathbed, because this is something everybody can kind of do, you can consider, has your life here been a net positive or negative to everyone else and everything here? Because every day you live here, you're eating animal, well, if you're vegan, maybe not, but you're eating life, even if you're vegan. So, I mean, you're eating things that have life. You're destroying the environment by using things the way we have to. Just being um, uh, here causes certain negative negatives, and you have to live your life in a positive way just to balance those out, to maybe be like a nothing, kind of an equal. And then if you really, push yourself, maybe you can be a net positive to the world, in just the way you lived your life. Um, but ultimately, I just I've been thinking about how like legacy and your entire life, whatever you produce and whatever you do, how small a blip. Even like I said, something like that. I've maybe made 100 million flat earthers or something. Okay, but that's a big number. But what does that actually translate to in life outside? Has the whole course of humanity now changed? Not yet. Like I've said many times, I'd like to think that this will be an Achilles heel to the New World Order. It's such a big overreach. They've overstepped the bounds of truth and reality to such a great degree that they've successfully lied to the entire world about what the world is for hundreds of years. It's incredible. And so I would think that, like, the pressure of a ball held underwater for 500 years, that it would just splash to the surface once everybody let go of holding that thing under, and that splash would, wash away all the evil or something. I feel like it's still possible that there could be like a crux time, there's timing issues when for instance, when COVID hit or something, when things ramp up, the attention of humanity kind of uh, unites towards whatever that thing is. For instance, what happened in 2020, everybody's looking at it. If they try to pull off some bigger hoax, I mean, every hoax they do, like the Katy Perry thing, every little thing they do, we poke holes in it, and then new flat earthers pop up, new people that start to question reality and conspiracies pop up. But eventually there could be enough of these little ones, or maybe one really big one that the whole world's looking at. And then maybe the flat earthers are the only ones that have the answers. They're the only ones that actually make any sense anymore, because everybody else is, acting like, a bat soup has caused the entire world to be exterminated. Meanwhile, somebody is saying like, maybe that's not what it is. And it makes way more sense than the thing that 99.9% of reality is believing. So I'm thinking that at some point this could happen, that everyone could eventually look in this direction at the same time, and we see the same thing. And maybe it's not flat earth, maybe that's not the thing, but there's got to be something, a catalyzing event that humanity can wake up to. Because and I think that that's the timing, both for good humanity to win and bad humanity to completely take us over. It would be that moment just when they're closing the door behind the New World Order and about to lock the key, that we could, prison break, let's go now. We can storm the door at that moment, but no sooner, perhaps, because any other time the door's been locked anyway, or whatever. My analogy is getting out there.
Yeah, yeah.
You get the idea.
Yeah. So I wanted to say that I believe I agree with what you say about beliefs 100%. Beliefs make people stagnant. Actually, beliefs make people not think, which is unfortunate. And what's funny is most time when you start getting into beliefs, you find out they're really just excuses. It's like, well, God gave the free will. It's like, well, free will's a bit silly if you also give it to a bunch of tyrannical weirdos that takes over humanity and takes away everybody's free will. It's not really being very beneficial. I also wanted to say that there's really just three things that human beings need: is food, water, and a place to sleep. And we still haven't figured this shit out. We're still busy flying to non-existent planets and showing people cartoons. I mean, NASA actually, they can't even make their mind up about how hair looks in zero gravity. Some days it flows, other days that shit sticks up like some Marge Simpson looking ass hairspray got stuck to it. And it's so bizarre to me. So I don't think that people are going to wake up, to be honest, because I mean, it's like, well, what do they need to see? Because at this point, it's like the people who have spent, I don't know the number, billions, trillions, whatever, all this money showing you cartoons have now been caught with green screens, cords, invisible things. They glitch in and out of their production quality, little fake shows. They have air bubbles coming out of their masks, for crying out loud. I mean, it's like, what do you need to see? If you haven't seen it yet, what do you need to see? And I don't know if these NASA clips need to be shown on Joe Rogan for it to wake people up, or um, which actually kind of leads into my next question a little bit. Um, and correct me if I'm wrong, I may be talking out of turn here, but if I remember correctly, I mean, it's happened a few years ago now. Um, Eddie Bravo, who was a friend of Joe Rogan, mentioned you and said you should talk to him, to Eric Dubay. Am I not remembering that correctly? Because I clearly remember him saying that, but then I don't remember you guys ever talking. But I do remember Eddie Bravo saying, you just ask Eric, man, ask Eric. He'll tell you about it, dude. And I was like, oh, this is going to be good. Eric's going to get on fucking, or I'm sorry, excuse me, on Joe Rogan, and this is going to be amazing. Um, am I remembering that wrong?
No, that was not a Mandela effect. That actually happened. And
Okay.
yeah, no, he even talked about it on his show. He scheduled it with Neil deGrasse Tyson, and it was a go. So yeah, I mean, it was ready to go. And then a couple weeks before it was ready to happen, he had Neil on again, and I'm tuning in watching. And then he's saying about how actually before that he had Mick West on, and that's when he got the message back from me saying that like, oh, he's agreed to do it. So there was another time when they were on, and he'd mentioned that it was on there and it was on the website. And then yeah, he had Neil deGrasse Tyson back on, and Neil goes, oh no, no, I'm not doing that. No, I don't debate with those guys. And it was news to me. And then I got word from Eddie shortly after. He's like, oh no, he's not doing it. And then I tried to get him to do just me. Like if Neil didn't want to do it, could just have me on the show. And it was non-communicado after that.
Mm.
Eddie said he said something to him, and he's like he kind of poo-pooed it, and he said he wasn't gonna push it any further, and I wasn't gonna try to push it any further. And then up until then, he'd been mentioning my name and doing like shows trying to debunk my work several times. And then after this happened, after they were going to schedule the debate and then they canceled it and whatever, I don't think I've ever heard Joe say my name again. It's like
Mm.
somebody told Neil and Joe, they're like, no, the best way to deal with this guy is pretend he doesn't exist. So just no, we're not doing the debate. No, you don't have him on your show, and stop talking about, because it's true. I mean, every time they talked about me, I'd take it and make it into a rap song, turn it into like a debunk video, and those would get big views. So like the paleontologist, he recognized it, and he's like, he's gonna take this, and now all these people know his name. And he was saying to stop talking about me even as well, because just like all advertising is good advertising kind of thing. It's like everybody loves to hate this flat earther, dinosaur denier, whatever guy. And
Mm.
so it's making me too much of like like a carnival act or something. What, somebody thinks dinosaurs don't exist, and so then they just go see to laugh at me. And then this is what I see in comments all the time. They're like, I just turned into your channel to laugh at you, and then I just kept tuning in, and you started making more sense, and here I am 6 years later or whatever. I get this kind of comment all the time. And I mean, in a way, yeah, that's kind of how I looked at the flat earth. I was like, I'd always had my globe skepticism,
Mm.
but the idea that is it really flat was kind of like silly. It's like that's just so far-fetched. I had all the same questions everybody else has, and they hadn't been answered yet, so it seemed kind of ridiculous. So I'm kind of reading just to be like, what the heck are these people on about? And I was like, well, that makes a lot more sense than I was thinking it was going to. And that actually answers that question I had since childhood better than the globe answer. Hmm. And yeah, I stopped laughing too. And then it was this real deep kind of wanting to know, and
Mm.
years of of research. And I guess that's what happened. And they probably figured that out. Like, hey, the best way to deal with this subject is pretend it's ridiculous, never engage with it, and just laugh at them. And that's mostly what even the debunkers do. They'll throw out their little excuses, little globe earth answers for things, but mostly what they're doing is insulting people and sarcasm and laughing at you. They're using emotional manipulation to make you not want to use your logical reasoning brain and figure this out, because if you do, then you're going to be the one that we're talking about, that we're insulting, that we're laughing at. You're going to be the stupid flat earther. And so people that aren't emotionally strong enough to even go down that road, they see what's happening. And that's, again, that paleontologist, he nailed it. He said the same thing. He says, we're not trying to go after the big mouthpieces and change their minds. We're trying to ridicule them so that the other people who their minds haven't been changed, they're going to be like, why did I even consider that? Why did I even think that the earth might be flat or that dinosaurs didn't exist? That's almost verbatim quote that he said. So they realize that how this works, and the best way to pretend that there's no validity to it is to not engage with it, or if you have to engage with it sarcastically with ridicule, like it's just so far below you that you can't even believe you're doing this. And that's what Simon Dan and Professor Dave and all these other people that have, the YouTube algorithm has just shot them up way above myself. Even I was able to hit the wave initially to get the level of subscriber base that I've had, but those guys, they've been artificially promoted to the hilt, because if you type in flat Earth, you don't see me. You see their videos that they take of my videos and laugh at me and barely provide any extra evidence, and that they get millions of subscribers.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of that happening in the background as well.
So I see these as actually just like tactics of the mind virus. So personal attacks or hollow comments. Hey, you're a shill. Hey, you're an agent. Or you're ugly, you're fat, your teeth are bad, whatever. The second I see that, I go, oh, mind virus. I mean, or at least you could say spiritually impotent human. Okay, so it's either, so I see these as tactics. And I will say it's interesting. So here's me, and you could label me as logical, but this is the way that my brain works. I go, huh. So this crazy dude over here that believes dinosaurs never existed, he's willing to come on the show, though. You're the one that's tucking tail and running. So I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but if Joe Rogan or anybody in reality wanted to debate me on my theory, I would be first in line, and I'd be giddy to do it too, because I would feel like I would win every time. I think personally, in my opinion, that Mr. Neil deGrasse Tyson knows that his cartoons would not hold up in court to actual scrutiny, or somebody with a high level of intelligence actually questioning his bizarre theories. So I personally think that that's what happened there. I think that Joe brought in Neil deGrasse Tyson, as a matter of fact, as a tactic to avoid you. That way the blame's not on him. Oh, it was Neil deGrasse Tyson that turned you down, not me. Well, I never asked to debate him. You threw that in. You threw that in. So I just want to say, I think everybody with eyes to see and logic in their mind sees exactly what happened there.
I think you're right about the Joe Rogan thing, because after all that happened, after Neil came on and said, "Oh, I don't debate flat earthers," yet Joe never wanted to have me on, nor did he entertain Eddie's flat Earth theories ever after that. He was always having Eddie on, and they had multiple episodes where they were going on about it. After that, I don't think he's had Eddie on as just a guest by himself since, and he's only been on his MMA companion videos. They have a bunch of guys there watching the UFC together. That's all you see of Eddie. So it seems, the same time that he was entertaining me and Eddie, he kind of canceled Eddie and me at the same time. You know what I mean? So I do feel like, for whatever reason, Joe just had enough of that, whether it was because of outside influences telling him or just something inside him, just decided, no, I'm not going there anymore. It might have been after that one long episode he had with Eddie where he actually like yelled at him. Did you ever see that episode? He's like shaking his head and he was yelling at Eddie about just how dumb flat Earth was and stuff.
Oh yeah, I think I did. I seen clips of it, and he was getting aggravated with. Yeah.
Yeah, and it was after that he just really never entertained the subject again. So something, again, I can't say either way. I don't know whether it was from on high or from within himself, but something snapped and he's not even entertaining the subject anymore, or me or Eddie in that way.
So this I made a video a few years ago. It's probably gone now, but I had said don't judge, don't be quick to judge Joe. I said because you don't know what happened, and even though the truth seeker of me, the righteous avenger that's here to save the world, is like, no, he should have had Eric. It's all about the truth. I don't know what happened to him or to Eddie, and I don't know what could happen to me to sway me off the truth. But I'm assuming because he's very big and important, some conversation or something must have happened. And I'm not quick to judge because, again, I don't know what happened. If it really was just Joe couldn't take it and he was sick of the flat earth comments, you said, oh, hell with it, I don't want to talk about it. That's possible. But I really believe something else happened because, like you said, they were willing to have the banter before, but not so much after. And it wasn't bothering him up to that point. So I find that interesting. But I don't know what happened. I don't know if I mean, for all I know, some suit showed up and turned into a lizard and said, we're going to eat your family if you don't shut your mouth about flat earth. So I don't know what happens in reality. I do know there's a lot of lies and deception and mystery. And that leads to my next question. When you were young and you realized this is a flat earth, I mean, well, or this stuff's making sense to me. Well, that leads to all the next quote. Wait, whoa. So wait, they're lying to me. They're lying to everybody. Everybody's believing them. So where did your mind go to next when you not just understood flat earth, but truly embrace, oh, this is definitely a possibility here. Where did your mind go next? Because my mind went to that. Who are they? Why are they lying to me? What the hell's going on here?
Mm. I was maybe lucky enough to go the other way, where I'd already written the Atlantean conspiracy before I came across flat Earth information or wrote my flat Earth books. So my awakening into the conspiracy realm was through 9/11, which I figured out around 2007-ish. And so from there, uh, you know, deep dived into secret societies and the New World Order and banking conspiracies and that whole thing. And so I already had that, under my belt, so to speak, before I even got to flat Earth. So
Okay.
I didn't have that thing that most people have, that barrier is like, well, that means that all these people are lying and it couldn't be possible because this and that. I already know about the secret society network that's set up and how they operate, and that they absolutely do keep lies. I mean, nowadays, ND, NDEs, what are they called? ND, A's
Non-disclosure.
and NDAs. I'm so used to talking about NDEs. The word wasn't coming to my mind. But NDAs, people lie all the time, or at least they're forced into silence contractually through these kind of things nowadays. And it's well known. Before that, there were sworn oaths and secret societies, and same kind of, or even more dire penalties for divulging truths. So, for example, the Freemasons, every single degree that they raise in their initiation rituals, they have little phrases that they say. For instance, I will not divulge the secrets of Masonry, lest my bowels be cut out and strung upon a tree. I will not divulge the secrets of Masonry, lest my tongue be cut out at the root.
I'm
And
sorry,
they,
I'm sorry. I don't mean to laugh. Just when I picture grown men role playing with robes and blindfolds and stuff, it cracks me up a little bit. But please continue.
totally, and that's exactly what they're doing. And in one way, it should crack you up because it's absolutely ridiculous that this has been going on for hundreds of years. This is how groups of men have controlled other groups, is by making them do these weird rituals and swearing these oaths. But when you've done so, I mean, you're blindfolded. You're in a locked, windowless lodge with a bunch of other strange men that you don't really know these men yet. You're being initiated. You're doing these rituals. You've memorized these little phrases that they do. They lead you around, and
Yeah, I walk a wandering path. I'm a traveler and all this stuff.
All
Yeah,
that stuff.
it's interesting. Yeah.
And when they take the blindfold off, you've got a bunch of swords pointed at you, and you're saying these kind of sworn oaths about not divulging the secrets that you've learned here. So I mean, you can imagine that if you actually had that experience, if you're one of these people that thought that this was going to be a cool thing to be part of this fraternity, and you actually went through all that, and then you wake up. I mean, first of all, if you're that kind of person, you're probably not the kind of person that's now going to go research conspiracies and then find out, oh my gosh, Freemasons are actually kind of bad, and oh, I'm going to expose them. It's like those are two totally different types of people. So that's another reason why it doesn't happen. Is the type of people that want to be a Freemason aren't the kind of people that want to lose everything that they've gained in life just to try and expose Freemasons. I mean, they probably
Yeah.
went into Freemasonry in the first place to have wealth, status, and success in the physical
It's
3D
of their
world.
very nature to seek such things.
Yeah, and so they're
Yeah.
not going to be just flip their entire existential way of being and just want to sacrifice everything just to be a different way that they've never. So that's how people are kept silent. And I already knew that this was happening before Flat Earth. So it wasn't a big jump for me to realize that there could be a lie that big. That seems to be actually the biggest hurdle most people have to accepting Flat Earth. It's not that the logic doesn't make sense and the reasoning and all the examples that we give. I mean, those all make sense to them. What they always jump back to after you finish explaining something, they go, yeah, but why? Or but why aren't there any whistleblowers? How could they get away with it? Why, thousands of scientists all around the world, they'll have these same kind of questions where it's more about the logistics of how the deception could possibly take place than the, which one is true. Because the thing is, once you figure out that it is flat, you don't really need to know the why or what about the whistle. All these questions that those are the questions you can't really know. That's what we were talking about before. You have to believe such a thing. I'm not the person lying. So if I'm going to give you some answer to the motive for this big deception or why are they lying, it's just a belief. It's just a guess. It's an assumption I might have. I don't know. Again, back to
Yeah.
knowing, not knowing, believing, not believing. So most people, they want to have some answer that they can believe or disbelieve so that they can further their research. They're not in empirical scientific land. If you were, then you would just research that until you found the truth, and then you wouldn't be befuddled and stumped by all these tertiary questions about like how and why. And no, if it is, it is, and you find out it is, that's it. All the other questions are just kind of something to be pondered for fun, and you're never going to get to the bottom of them anyway unless you grab some 33rd degree Freemason by the neck and torture him to get all the. And even then, who knows, he's going to give accurate confessions under torture. So how are we going to truly get to the bottom of questions like why are they lying? And it's been going on for 500 years. The question of why some dude now is lying versus why Copernicus decided to lie, if that person is even a real person, totally different. The people now, they're just continuing what their forefathers have created, and it's just playing along versus somebody who actually started the whole thing. It's whole different answers. Anyway.
Yeah. So with the military, I don't understand why that's such a hard thing for people to grasp in their mind, because everybody knows if the military was just an open thought out in the air for all to think about, we all know the agenda, we all know the plan. Okay, then I would understand the argument, but everybody knows it's compartmentalized. Nobody at this level knows what people at this. So it's actually very easy for a few people to deceive the world. All you have to do is keep it compartmentalized. It's really not that complicated. It's like, and everybody should understand this. Don't you at your job? I mean, do you know exactly what your supervisor and then what the boss above your super? No, you don't know what these people do above you. You experience it at work. How's that so hard for people to understand? I don't. So it doesn't take a lot of people having to be, oh, the whole world's in on it. No, there's a small handful of people in on it, and the rest of you are being lied to. The rest of
Yeah,
it's compartmentalized.
you got
Uh,
it.
so I don't understand that argument. That makes no sense to me. And the other thing about the why would they lie? To me, it's a silly question. I also would. It's not a slip. Let me rephrase that. I also would like to know why they lie. But the truth is, if they identify that they're lying, that's the important part.
Right.
And not why they're lying. You don't ask that first. You ask that after you've discovered their lie. Well, we're telling you we've discovered their lie, and you're going to the well. Why did they? I don't know. I don't hang out with these people. I don't have weird agendas and hang out
Oh,
with
okay. Well, then I'm
leaders.
not going to listen to you anymore. And that's the
Yeah,
crux right there is
yeah,
most people that ask, why would they lie? They're asking before they've even researched whether there is a lie to be lied about.
unbelievable.
And then if you
It's
can't give
nonsensical.
them an answer that they find satisfactory enough, then they're just not going to research it and they're going to
Mm.
assume that it's wrong. But just
Oh
like you
God.
said, that's not how this works. You find out whether something is or is not. Then you
Yep.
can ponder about the why, the how, and all the other questions. But you don't just, hey, give me a satisfactory answer for the why. Otherwise, I'm just going to deny that it possibly is.
Mm. Yeah,
Right?
it's
And
silly.
that's what most globe defenders do. They use these questions as defense mechanisms to
Yep.
not have to delve deeper.
Yep. And they do it especially for leaders, in quotes, leaders. They do it especially for cult members, doctors, if they're wearing a white coat, but they won't do it in their personal life. That's the weird part. That the only time they practice that behavior is with their leaders. So for the example I gave is if your old lady was late home from work 3 hours. She came home sweaty, smelling like sex. She had, all the obvious signs. You look at her phone. She says, "Honey, I'm jumping in the shower." It says, "Oh, baby, what a great time we just had." Every signal was there. And then you said, "Honey, I think you're cheating on me." And she said, "Why would I lie to you? I'm not cheating on you." Are you going to go, "Well, I don't know why she would lie to me." See, but they do that for the government. Isn't that
Totally.
bizarre? It's like a weird psychological, and that's I think that's where the thought of NPC comes from. But I don't know if it's NPC. I really believe, and I know people don't like hearing that humans are very scripted and programmable. And
Mm.
like, man, once they believe, man, you can forget about it. It's almost like talking to a wall. There's almost a person with no brain there. Well, I believe it. And then everything you could say to them, whether it's logical, makes sense, adds up, it doesn't matter. Their beliefs, their cartoon stories, delusions, override everything you say. It's so we talk about the them a lot, and I think we are the them to a degree, and not in the
Mm.
sense like we're evil and we're doing it, but we are a big part of this system. That leads into what the next question I want to ask you. So, do you think that this is a them problem or an us problem?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Mhm.
Yeah, is there really an us and them? There are these secret societies and all these entities that you can point to, but who's in them? Us.
Yeah.
Groups of us. and,
Yep.
and so it's more the factionization of us into deceptive little entities that's causing all of this. And so the us versus them split is actually a falsity, a falsehood. It is us, of course. Well, I mean, okay, unless it's archons and the demigods and all these kind of things that are something beyond us. And I do think there is kind of an aspect to that. And that's why
Mm.
that, another reason why that kind of makes sense in that this world seems to have been kind of controlled by psychopathic people, megalomaniacal, people that want world control.
Mm.
They end up being the ones who get it. Go figure. So, but if the world was also created by, say, an evil, inferior kind of being that wants loosh or whatever, like we were talking about, then it does make sense that those kind of people are the ones who would have status, success, wealth in a society that was set up by an insane being. And if they're,
Mm.
who are they worship? They say they're worshiping the devil. The Christians will say, but maybe they're just worshiping the actual creator of this realm, which Christians call the devil.
Yeah.
Um, but if they've just correctly identified who you're supposed to worship in this hell realm, which is the devil, and of course that's why they're successful, and that's why you would sell your soul to the devil for material success in this realm, because this is the devil's realm. I mean, even the mainstream Christians, I think it's somewhere in the Bible saying that the you know the this world is Satan's world. He offers it to Jesus on the mountain. So I mean, obviously, in some way, Christians also kind of accept that Earth isn't the God place. Earth is the Satan place.
Yeah.
But but then at the same time, when you present that to them, they're like, no, 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 no. Earth is godly. God created it, and humans made the fall and all this stuff. It's like, yeah, but if you read the Gnostic Gospels, and then you cross analyze that with what still remains in the Bible, what I see is that the creator is the evil God, and that's why worshiping the evil creator is going to raise you up in this world. Makes perfect sense. And then if your hero is Jesus, the character that came from the pleroma, the true God, to awaken humanity, then you're going to be a victim, which is which is what he was the ultimate victim. He's supposedly God in human form, and what can he do? Gain a small cult following until eventually he's murdered.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So that's what God can do in this world. Well, if
Mhm.
you look at the Gnostic version, it's because that is coming from the one true God. So when the one true God comes into the realm of this fallen evil demigod simulation that we're talking about, well, this is all he can really ultimately do, because it's not his place. This is the place of Satan. This is his realm. And so we shouldn't try to escape. Back to the like soul trap idea. Even Christians, isn't that what you're trying to do? You're trying to escape this soul trap. You don't want to come back to earth, do you? You don't even believe in reincarnation, but you do believe that you're going to either go to heaven or hell. So you're going to go someplace better or worse. You don't even get to stay in this purgatory in your belief system. But we have the same impetus. We have the same kind of idea, which is that there exists something better than this, and that's where we want to go. But it's like I don't get the Christians who they accept that there's something better than this, but then at the same time, this realm is like perfect as well. It's like you got to kind of have some wiggle room here for accept some of these dark truths that us soul trappers are saying about this reality, and then maybe Angelica Agnostou is her name. She's a Greek soul trap author, and she's also a Christian. And so her like slant on it is that Jesus is still the answer, but it's a soul trap. So I mean, different ways to look at the idea, but at least for me, at least that's a Christian who's accepting some of these darker realities, you know what I mean? Versus the mainstream Christian that just kind of whitewashes everything and just tells me, oh, it's free will. And like we were saying earlier.
Yeah, like I said, they will willingly contradict themselves as long as it's comfortable in their mind. And that's why I say they're more excuse givers. They make excuses for obvious nastiness, and they are really good at that. And they will contradict themselves, right? So what I've done is I've sort of sorted myself out in my life to get away from people that live in delusions. It's not worth it. It'll drain your energy. And the second that someone starts saying, "Well, yeah, I know I just contradicted myself, but it feels good to me," and they've gone that, I'm like, okay, okay, this is not the type of person I associate with. It's not that, but yeah, it's it's unfortunate, but actually on a deeper level, it's extremely unfortunate because what I see now are people that are subjected to a situation that's so dark and bad and hard to deal with that they literally create delusions and live in mental comfort zones to continue on in their current existence. And I would say that that alone, well, not to mention, the suicide rate, the depression rate, the amount of psych meds in reality, the amount of people just struggling should really diffuse any thought you have in your mind of a loving creator. I don't understand it. And usually the argument is that this place is a school. And my argument back to that is, well, would you send your kid to I just gotta say it, would you send your kid to an elementary school where the first steps he takes is over a fire pit with spikes that come up, and then he's got to jump over that to get to kindergarten class, and then as he's going to, he's got to worry about the side spikes that come out of the wall, and then he's got to worry about, the fire pits and the living alligator pit. No, you would not subject a child to that and say, go learn. You're going to learn in the suffering, boy. That would scare the hell out of the kid to never want to go to school. And if the kid had any actual brains in his head before going to school, he would never go back again. So, I mean, this idea, do you think it's possible? Now, so recently I have sort of found a peace in my life. And I don't know if I've lost my mind, if I've gone insane, or if I've defeated my demons. But in the past month, I've found a sort of peace in my life. But before that, I would have never argued this was a school. And I don't know if I've grown or if I'm past it or the detachment is working, but I would never argue this was a school. Recently, I could sort of, but before these past few weeks, do you think that this realm is a growth school for our growing and learning? Because what the message I get when I observe reality is different. It's the opposite. It's almost like a restrict you from thinking, sort of don't think, shut up, go to work and keep your mouth shut. Opposite of a school. It's literally the opposite. It's more of like an indoctrination prison camp. But do you think that I guess the question is, do you think this reality may have originally been a school or a learning ground for us?
Mm. That seems to be what the Christian view is as well, that it was originally a school, but then we screwed that school up, and now it's turned into,
It's our fault.
Yeah, it's our fault again that now we're in prison. Well, right from the get-go, again, if you're a God creating actual consciousness and humans and a reality for them to live in, why would you create humans that needed to learn in the first place? Like that's one question I have, is that right from the get-go, why would you create a reality that necessitated this whole evolution of learning through however you decide to evolve your beings? Why not just have them pre-evolved? Why not just have them know everything? Like, so first of all, that doesn't make any sense. Why have we been downgraded past all knowledge? So that's a good question. And then if it is a school, like you're saying, well, we start with no memory of anything that happened before our birth, how we were created, how this reality was created, or anything. We all just show up the same way. We just at some point, at a certain number of months or whatever, we become self-conscious. I mean, before that, I don't even have memory of before 5 years old, basically.
Yeah.
And at some point before that, I imagine, I can kind of remember becoming conscious, I guess. You know what I mean? Like, there's at some point you just don't even remember anything. I have no idea what was happening when I was 1 month old. I have no memories. Yeah. But then slowly you have these impressions, and you recognize yourself as being like a camera, like you're an observer, and you start to recognize your own agency. And then, your parents and all these kind of things slowly happen. But man, why is that? Why is it set up that way? That is quite retarded in the sense of slowed down. It's why aren't we just boom already here with all knowledge, all consciousness, everything? It's been set up in this way that everything just slowly happens. But it doesn't. We don't slowly evolve into like Superman. No, it's on a parabolic curve. We grow, and then we have in our 20s or 30s or something, we like peak. And then after that, all our faculties, our physical, mental faculties decline until we die. And then we're just, I mean, what was God thinking? If God was this benevolent, perfect, holy, loving thing, and, oh, I love my children and I'm creating this garden for you. Like, I mean, in my sleep, I could have done better. I don't get how people would worship this entity and make excuses all day for all the negatives and evils here. So again, back to the school thing. So we don't know anything. And then it's like you go from kindergarten to 12th grade. And then if you don't pass with an A+ all the way through, the teacher knocks you upside the head so hard that you forget everything and you have to start at kindergarten all over again. Because if that's what's happening with the reincarnation, if we do come back and we have no memory of what we just learned, then we have to relearn it and hope that we make it out this time. And that's what Buddhism and Hinduism and Jainism, they all believe, that we have like hundreds or thousands of reincarnations before we
Oh my God.
finally get it right. And again, oh my God, that's what I'd say to God as well. It's like, really,
Yeah.
I mean, that's torture. You're making us go through this learning system over and over again, and then every time we don't get it right, we don't get to keep the knowledge that we gained and then continue. Oh no, no, you start all over again. Kind of like that video game you were talking about. It's like, you don't even get. It's like early like '90s video games where you don't have save files.
Yeah, yeah,
Super Mario
roguelike.
Brothers, you just got to
Yeah.
start at level one
You
one.
got one character to go through, and that's it. If you die, even if you're on level 20 out of 21, you got to start over again. Like,
Right.
great learning school. Let's wipe my mind. Don't hit me in the head with a ruler. Hit me in the head with a gigantic sledgehammer and crack my skull open till my brain falls out, and then put me back in school. Like, man, these teachers are something special. Hey, kid, come here, come here. I'm going to enter you in this running contest. Oh, you weren't fast enough. Let me break his legs. Oh, and the kid's walking around crippled now. I mean, it's the most bizarre. To even try to call this reality as school shows me you didn't learn anything in it. So, I mean, it's to me the argument that it's a school is silly. I can't understand how anybody, I mean, unless I mean, how did your parents raise you? I mean, did they throw you in pits of fire when you were a bad kid? Like, this is not a school, but I feel like it's a suffering realm. But then, well, that leads to, but why? What? And not that I feel it's a suffering realm. That's a stupid thing to say. It is a suffering realm. I actually, when we get into feelings and complicate things, that's when you stray away from the truth. The actual truth is, I think everybody knows and sees the truth, but then they purposefully attach delusion to avoid it. The truth is, we are absolutely in a suffering realm, and it's excessive. It's excessive. Watch somebody you love die for a 5-year period and then lose their mind for 2 years, and it'll really make you question whether this is a nice place or for our benefit in any kind of way. But then I would say, why do we go through that level of suffering? If I was going to make a farm of human essence, I would have just made it where they were all happy. I would have made them excited to be alive every day. They'd get up, they'd be jolly to go to work. Hey, Eric, how you doing? Hey, Chris, how you been? Oh, everybody would have loved this reality. Nobody would have had to eat. Nobody would have had to work. Everybody would have been able to play music, dance, sing, and nobody would even have to eat. Eating could be a pastime just because it's enjoyable. I mean, we could have made this world completely different, but the way I'm looking at it is like there's a bunch of excessive suffering. What the hell is that about?
Mm. Yeah, and like if God created this realm to be our teacher and we're like his students, where is he? He's an absent teacher. Why isn't he at the head of the blackboard every day, anytime we have a question, teaching us everything, explaining everything and the logistics of his creation and how cool it was that he created this and all that? No, he's just gone. And we're supposed to learn our lessons from the hyenas and sharks and alligators and stuff that are trying to eat us. No, I mean, well, if this is a school, where is the teacher?
That's a great question. Okay, I got to bring this up, dude. I think it was Joe Dirt was the name of the movie, but in the beginning of the movie, some bad father just takes his kids to the Grand Canyon, drops them off, and gets in the car and drives away. And anybody with sense in their mind would go, "Man, that's a bad father." But I still remember when I seen that, I went, "That's what God did to us." Isn't that what God did to us? It's like, well, so everything observable paints God with a really nasty brush. If there is a God, everything observable paints them with a nasty brush. But then I think it's deeper than NPCs or mind control or MK Ultra or the government. I think it really is survival when we talk about people that live in delusion. Because if I go up to somebody and I paint the God of their whole realm, not just, I'm into their reality bubble. I'm destroying their whole worldview. I'm literally telling them, you are in a hell realm. There's something here that we suffer too much. It doesn't make sense. There's an absent God where the whim of psychos here. It's very violent. Things rip each other's guts out. You're not fighting their information. You're fighting their mental fortitude. I think that's what's going on. I don't think it's an NPC thing. I just think people can't mentally deal with that. And so that's going to be my next question is I grew up in a really shitty environment. We'll say rough environment. And so I always thought that's what made me mentally tough, was just dealing with violence or stuff at an early age. And I almost walked around with this attitude that um, all truthers must have dealt with abuse or something or violence, and they just seen how reality really was, and that really what woke them up or something. But that's not actually true in every case. Um, did you grow up in a violence or abuse household, or did you deal with a lot of stuff early that made you question reality?
No. And I think that it's like a, you either you're, let's say, raised right, and then you follow the example that you are raised with, or you are raised wrong, and then you know exactly what example you don't want to take in your life, and you go the other way. So and I've seen so many people that are exactly both, and there's the opposite too, where you're raised right, and then you just you veer left, and you end up being this person that your parents did
That
not.
belief.
Yeah. um, and or there's all four of those options. But I wouldn't you rather be raised right and just follow the good example? So if this was a school created by a loving God, and that was the trajectory that he wanted us to take, then I think it would feel a lot better than this. This reality is set up the other way, like you're saying, where it's trauma based, and we learn from all the things that happen to us, all the negative things that happen to us. So you could say that it's a school, but if it was, then I would say that the principal or the superintendent is evil.
Very
It's a
evil.
really bad one. So again, whether it almost gets to semantics at that point. I was just discussing it with someone else who's basically saying that schools are prisons anyway. So why are we trying to make the distinction? Because that's another thing. Modern day schools aren't that much different than prisons anyway. You gotta raise your hand to use the bathroom. When a bell dings, you go to the next room, and there's all these regimented that some people have to wear uniforms, and you have restrictions. So school, prison, whatever, it's a negative place. I can imagine a much more positive place. I can imagine not having to be in school because why isn't this a graduated reality? Like I said, why didn't God just create beings and a reality that doesn't necessitate thousands of reincarnations to get it right, so to speak? So none of these answers that you get from the mainstream religions have made any sense to me. And that's what has led my agnostic, detective like brain to this soul trap subject. And I don't believe in it, just like I don't believe in anything else. But it makes more sense. It answers a lot of these questions that others don't. So that's why I'm exploring it. That's why the past several years I've been pondering this subject. The way my thinking goes veers towards this way because there's so much evidence from various spaces pointing to this, like we're saying here, that the traditional answers that most religions are giving us for what we're doing here, why this place is created, and who God is, just don't resonate. But I'm not saying that this is reality either, that I know anything. That's why we started this way, and we've got about 5 minutes left on this thing, so I wrap it up as well with this belief thing. I think that's the thing you were talking about, how it's like so hard to get through to certain people. And I was talking about emotional manipulation. Most of this isn't really happening in the sphere of logic and reason. It's mostly in the sphere of emotion and spirituality.
Yeah, mental fortitude. That's
Oh, that's
actually
how
what
you
I
worded
was
it.
asking.
Yes, that's a good way to word it.
How did you gain your mental fortitude if you didn't grow up in a violent place? Was really what I was asking. What made you where you could deal with these truths?
I would say it's that same veering thing. Like if you have good examples, I didn't have a violent or negative childhood. I think I had a
Oh, you're
very
saying the
positive one.
positive upbringing is what led you down this path, really?
Yeah, I'm saying both, because I've seen both happen with people. A positive
Okay.
upbringing with good examples as parents and stuff makes you go, blossom in that direction. And then other people who have also blossomed in the same direction have started in the exact opposite way, where they've had very traumatic childhoods and very poor examples as parents. But then because of that, they did learn
Yeah.
from it. So, I mean, negative reinforcement, positive reinforcement, they are both ways of learning. They both work. But
So the
what I'm
reinforcement's the
saying
important
is
part.
just that if you could choose, you know, if you were God, or if you got to choose this reality, if you could choose your teacher, would you choose the teacher who gave you negative reinforcement to help you
Hell no.
learn,
Hell
or
no.
positive? Would you choose a teacher who was such a bad example of how to be a human that you did the exact opposite? Or would you rather have a teacher that was a good example that you could just
Yeah.
follow his good example? So
I
that's
would
what I'm
have loved
saying.
to have had yours, to be honest with you. Yes. That would have been great.
But I think those are the options, and that's what happens to people. And that could be one reason that you could give, right? See, this is a school. It's just a school of negative reinforcement. Okay, but but that you can't escape from unless you kill yourself.
Yeah, that's a prison with
Yeah.
reinforcement. That's not a school, guy.
Yeah.
But yeah, Eric, I truly appreciate you coming on and talking to me, dude. You didn't have to do this. I'm a smaller channel. The highest I've ever been was 2,000 subscribers. My hat's off to you, not just for being who you are, but also for having the open mind and the mental fortitude to also deal with the truth. And what you've done to wake, I really think you sell yourself short, dude. You're one of like the key people in this realm, like the whole reality to wake up consciousness. You really, if you've reached a million people, that branches, man. That's not just a million. That's a billion, and then 2 billion. I mean, it branches so quickly. So thank you from the bottom of my heart for what you do. I think you're an amazing human being, and thank you for this conversation, brother. I appreciate it.
Oh, I appreciate that very much. No, I do hope that the waves ripple out, and hopefully we do
They
reach
do.
that point, you know, that pinnacle tipping point some way or another, that all this information, all this research, all this activism that people like yourself and myself have been doing actually makes some real world change.